Yes, welcome into SportsBIT. Betting Inside today, Pauly and Teddy. Tuesday, March 14th. Deep dive, NIT preview quickly. There's new rules. A lot to go over, and a lot of schools on spring break. Big game breakdown. We'll get Wake Forest and Kansas State. Also, we'll preview the East and the West regions today. Sleepers, upsets, sleepers to win the region, upset pick, and our pick to come out of each region. That's today. Bad beats bad, bets bad for the books, Teddy. Well, you knew you'd get a big effort after the Bulls were humiliated by the Celtics, and they certainly showed up in Charlotte.
Yeah, they certainly did. And of course, the markets saw the Bulls flat out stink on national TV on Sunday. They saw them stink in the game before that and the game before that, but those bettors came late to the party. Charlotte bet up from -6.5 to -7.5. They lose the game outright. The Bulls hang 115 on the Hornets. 4 Chicago players scored 20 or more, including a rare offensive outfit from Rajon Rondo scored 20 last night. And, of course, the bettors who remember that the Bulls stink, they forgot maybe the Hornets flat out stink in a lot of games too. But Charlotte's just not on national TV as much.
Yeah, good point there. That's a bad bet. Bad for the books. This was the mother of all bad spots for the Wizards as they wrapped up their long road trip. Remember, the Wizards were down 21 against Portland, came back to win that game. They were down 15 in the fourth quarter against Sac, came back to win that game. Minnesota had a huge lead early, and they beat them 119 to 104.
Oh, the Wizards came back and made it a game. I mean, I have to give them credit. Minnesota bet from, -1 to -2.5. The market saw how tough a spot this was for the Wiz. Again, 5th road game in 7 nights, coming off back-to-back, pull everything you've got in the tank and rally from behind to win in overtime. In each of the previous 2 games, they were 4-0 straight up on the road trip. Yeah, Washington finally ran out of gas, and maybe better starting to pick up on Minnesota a little bit. They've been as good as any team in the NBA here in the month of March. 4-1 straight up against teams that are locked into the playoffs this month. The only loss coming at San Antonio in overtimes. And I'll tell you what, Karl Anthony Towns was a beast last night. 39 points, 13 boards. Rubio had his season high in assists. If you're the Warriors without Durant or the Spurs without Aldridge, you really want to run into these guys in the first round? Minnesota's playing some good basketball right now.
I'd still want to play them over the Blazers and the Nuggets, or the Nuggets rather, with what Portland and Denver have been able to do, especially with Portland getting Jokic. Dallas, Toronto under 198.5, bet down to 196, not even close.
Yeah, it fell 178. The Raptors now 10-3 to the under in their last 13 ball games. Remember, we talked about at the trading deadline. When you pick up guys like P.J. Tucker, you expect the defensive acumen to improve and maybe the offensive game plan to go down a little bit. Obviously, losing Lowry didn't help in that regard either. But Toronto, a dead nuts under team right now. The bettors had it right last night. That was a bad result for the house.
Bad for the books continues. Some Jazz money at home. They finally beat the Clippers.
Yeah, and it was all one run. I mean, the Jazz got bet from -1 up to 2.5, and they had a big run late third into the early fourth quarter. Bench versus bench, and the Jazz bench just blew them out. They were raining threes. At one point, they were hitting like 70% from three-point range for the ball game. And you think about the Clips, all this time developing depth, and all these years working on their bench, and here it is, a game against another playoff team. What happens? Clippers bench came up short. Bad result for the house on that one.
Here's another one. This is another bad spot. I can't imagine the Lakers are taking any money. We talked about the Lakers are a fade the rest of the season. They lost 8 in a row, blown out in most of those games. Then they went to Phoenix and somehow won. But then they lost the 76ers at home Sunday night. They were down 30 in the second quarter against Denver. Check out the schedule as they're in full tank mode, but they stink to begin with. Other than April 7th at home against Sac, I can't find a win on the schedule.
Sure. I mean, the Lakers' wins are going to come when somebody somebody is completely not interested in playing them, which wasn't the case when they faced the Nuggets last night.
All right, how about a weather and travel update as Stella wreaking havoc?
Yeah, and this is, there's a lot of news to report about the weather issues with this blizzard in the Northeast. All right, let's start with Villanova. Okay, they left Philadelphia on Monday for Buffalo. They were expecting to leave on Tuesday. Jay Wright, quote, "I'm not really looking forward to leaving right away, but it hits you with the reality, you're in it. We're going to be in Buffalo tonight. We're playing, and it's on." So Nova's there. Princeton probably had the roughest week of all, Paulie. You know, when you talk about Princeton, this is not a team that's been to the big dance before. I shouldn't say that. They have been to the big dance before. There hasn't been a championship in the Ivy League. You know, the Ivy League team is known they're getting in before the Sunday. So Princeton didn't clinch until Sunday. Then they got a blizzard coming on Monday. They got to find out what they're doing, where they're going on real short notice. The AD, quote, "We just found out our flight time this morning. We've been booking bus and hotel. It's putting a lot of pressure on us to get everything done and organized. Yeah, it's been crazy. And oh, by the way, here's the key with Princeton. Quote, a lot of our guys are going to have to take exams proctored by a professor who's going to have to travel with us. Okay, this is a team facing midterms this week. They're going to squeeze them in between before the team plays Notre Dame on Thursday in Buffalo. So they'll have something on their mind besides basketball on this very hurried trip for Princeton. Providence, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, all with travel issues as well. They've all moved quickly. One of the three ended up taking a bus. Who was it? Oh, yeah, West Virginia ended up taking a bus 280 miles to Buffalo, although they left on Monday night instead of leaving on Tuesday. So I don't know if that's going to really have an effect. But, you know, the bus trips, certainly for schools that aren't used to bus trips, something you want to be aware of.
So did Virginia Tech?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Both those teams took buses.
Yeah, all right. Hokies took a bus to Roanoke, and they fly to Buffalo before the game.
No, yeah, the Hokies just took a bus to Roanoke. Yeah, and then they flew to Buffalo. They didn't take a bus the whole way up.
Well, there was a bus. There was a bus involved.
Well, you always take a bus to the airport, or oftentimes take a bus to the airport, yeah.
Yeah. All right, up next, we preview the East and the West regions, and then K-State and Wake Forest. First four matchup tonight. Coming up on SportsBIT, Betting Insight today. And you want to stick around for the deep dive on the NIT, too. There's some new stuff that'll blow your mind. SportsBIT, Betting Insight today, and SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBIT, Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, here we go. Let's start with the East region. A sleeper, a upset, and our pick to win each region. Teddy, you start with a sleeper.
All right, sleeper in the East. I don't even know if it's a sleeper. Number 6 seed, SMU, who shouldn't be a 6 seed. The odds will tell you they're no sleeper. Here in Las Vegas, they are one of the top 10 teams to win the tournament to the lowest odds. SMU is my sleeper, period.
All right, I think Florida's a good team, with the exception of when they played Vandy. For whatever reason, Vandy had their number, and Florida's a 4 seed. They could make some noise, and I wouldn't be shocked if they can upset Villanova in that region and wind up being a sleeper and getting it done there. And we agree on this one, though. Who is the pick to win the region?
Again, if it's not this team, I'm picking SMU to come out of the East. But this team, of course, is Villanova. I mean, I picked them to win it all last week, not walking away from that concept 1 week later. When Jay Wright held up 2 fingers last year instead of 1, he might have been telling us something, Paulie.
He's right, and hopefully they can make it interesting and make a run as they try to repeat. First round upset. You're going big here. Be bold, Teddy. What do you have?
Yeah, let's go for how about a 3 seed getting knocked off by a 14 in the first round. New Mexico State beating Baylor. Remember, Baylor's accustomed to controlling opponents in the paint. That's not so easy against New Mexico State. And look, the WAC was terrible this year. Terrible. But New Mexico State beat Arizona State. They beat UTEP. They beat New Mexico. They lost by only 3 at Colorado State. All pretty good teams. Baylor seems to lose a lot of tourney games like this one, Paulie.
Oh, can you imagine if they lose this game? That'd be 3 years in a row. That would be Georgia State, Yale, and New Mexico State. Oh, my God.
Can I imagine? Yes, I can imagine. That's why I'm calling it.
That'd be great. I'm going with the 12 over a 5. I know most people pick that every year. But, hey, we've been talking about this team, at least I have, in the Google Hangout for 2 months now. Everyone asks, how about a sleeper? How about a Sweet 16? How about a mid-major sleeper? I give you UNC Wilmington Seahawks for the last 2 months. I can't abandon them now. They can score. I know Virginia's going to dictate tempo, but I love this team. And last year in the tournament, they led it to half against Duke before they lost 93-85. 29-5 on the season. Fleming's 15 points per game. They have enough to challenge Virginia. They can score in a half-court game. I can't say the same about Virginia. Their offense sometimes disappears and they can't do anything. Bryce, 17 points per game. Fleming's 15.8 points per game with the picture. And Ingram, 14 points per game. Balanced, veteran club. Give me the Seahawks to shock the world and beat Virginia. That's my upset in the 12-5. All right, now on to the West. West region now. Who's your sleeper?
Come on, who's the team? I don't know if I've been talking about it a ton. Vanderbilt is the team I'm talking about as a sleeper, the number 9 seed. That team played really good basketball down the stretch, much better in February and March than they were in December and January, both home and away. They rebound, they hit free throws, they play defense. The Zags better hope Northwestern knocks off Vandy in the first round, because there's an 8-9 team prepared to make a run in this tournament that just might be the Vanderbilt Commodores.
All right, I'm going to go with West Virginia. I think a focus group this time after what happened last year. Remember, what were they, a 3 seed? And Stephen F. Austin ran them out, blew them out. So I think they'll get the win against Bucknell, though it'll be a close game. And then they could my pick, maybe they could be a sleeper to knock off Gonzaga along the way. But if that doesn't happen, what is your pick? It's chalky, and it's going to be a popular pick. But we love Bill Walton. Pac-12 Conference of Champions, spark it up, Statue of Liberty, Arizona.
Yeah, and look, you're supposed to be chalky with your Final Four pick. I got no problem. We took a 1 seed Nova in the East. We're taking a 2 seed Arizona in the West. You know, and again, pro Pac-12 last week, I'm not walking away from that concept 1 week later. Zona's the best team in this conference, and this region, I should say. We'll talk about Arizona more when it comes to play of the daytime.
All right, we continue with the West. Let's finish it out with an upset pick. Who you got, Teddy?
Oh, we got to go with number 10 seed VCU over 7 seed St. Mary's. You know, everyone's saying the Gales. When you look at the entire season for St. Mary's, let's see. They beat Nevada the very first game of the season. They beat Dayton in the third game of the season. Give me a signature wins. Nuh-uh. VCU can play snowball. Slow ball. They can play snowball too, but given the blizzard, they can play slow ball. I'll take VCU, the Rams, over the Gales as my upset special.
All right, I have to do it again. Another 12 over a 5, and Notre Dame made that run in the ACC tournament before they lost to the Dukies, but I'm taking Princeton. I like this team, and I've watched them a few times this year. They have Miles Stevens, a banger down low. The kid's tough. They have big guys that can be inside and out. They have big guys that can shoot the 3. They're good from the free throw line. They're 23-6 on the season. 5 guys average at least 9 points per game. Princeton, another 12 over a 5 to upset Notre Dame, Teddy.
Nice. That's, 12-5 upsets, as we talked about on yesterday's show. From a point spread perspective, it's not just one of these urban myths. You're making money betting the 12 seeds against the 5. Something to the tune of 21 and 11 ATS the last 32 tries.
Yeah, I like the points in both of those games as well, as we talked about on yesterday's show with the 12 against the 5. Big game breakdown continues. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. We first up today, Mount St. Mary's against New Orleans. New Orleans 1.5, 131.5 the total. This stinks for the Privateers. I think they're in the tourney for the first time since '96, and they're in the damn play-in game. We're not previewing this one though, Teddy. Tell them why.
Well, it's real simple, okay? Pauly, what conference is Mount St. Mary's from?
The Northeast.
Yeah, you're thinking about it. Have you seen them play this year?
Once.
Have you seen New Orleans play this year?
Once.
Would you consider yourself an expert on either team?
No.
Would you consider yourself a moderately knowledgeable on either team?
No.
Me neither. Therefore, let's move on to the next game, because one thing we don't want to do here on SportsBIT is fill you with bullshit. We don't know it. We don't know it. I don't know Mount St. Mary's versus New Orleans. Good luck if you want to bet it.
Good point. Don't want to fake it like most people have been fake it this time of year. Half hour after this game, it's Kansas State and Wake Forest. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Pick 152 the total, but there's been a wide variance on this total.
Yeah, I mean, even last night, you don't often see this type of variance. And I'm not talking anything ridiculous, but there were 151s out there and 153s out there last night, Pauly. And that's, not always the case when you talk about totals this close to tip-off.
Okay, ACC Big 12 clash. ACC got the rep for being the best, but top to bottom, maybe the Big 12 was better. Ken Pomeroy, average Big 12 team was 2 points better than an average ACC team. Sagarin has the Big 12 better by 0.3. Wake has the talent to hang with the team, well, with any team in any game. 0-3 against Duke and North Carolina, but the loss is only by 6, 2, and 5 points, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, this is I will be watching this game very closely because we talk about conference tells. This is going to give us mid-team from the ACC, mid-team from the Big 12. We're going to get an idea of the respective strengths of these two conferences. And maybe we learn something from it, maybe we don't. But there's something to be said for an early non-conference affair when you have multiple bid leagues. Sometimes you get a read on how good the conferences actually are. Now look, as you said, Wake can hang with anybody. What they couldn't do is win a lot of close games this year. You know, they play inside out. They have John Collins, the big man in the middle. What do you have, 16 points a game, a block and a half. The guards are real good. Brian Crawford and Keyshawn Woods can fill it up. But all three of those guys, sophomores, relatively young. They're all going to come back. That could mean a major run for Wake Forest next year. But this year, what happened? You know, they do what talented but inexperienced teams do. They come close, they hang tough, but they lose a lot of games because they didn't have that polish. Even with Collins blocking away so many shots, just 160th in the nation in defensive efficiency and number 312 in the nation at forcing turnovers.
I'll be honest, he's a nice guy. I've interviewed him before. I don't think Bruce Weber's much of a head coach. And they're at the other end of the spectrum. The scouts don't come to their games, but they get these guys to go out and scrap and play hard. No great scores, but balance about as tight as any team. K-State points per game. You see this graphic. Look at this. 12.5. Brown's got 11.7. Stokes, Johnson, and Wade. That's a lot like Princeton, what I just talked about. And on defense, what do you think of this team on defense and efficiency and turnovers and a good, Wake Forest wants to get up and go. K-State wants to slow it down.
Well, absolutely. And, I mean, Kansas State does their scrapping defensively. Wake Forest doesn't. Kansas State, number 27th in the country in defensive efficiency, and number 14 in the country in turnovers forced. Two categories we just talked about that Wake is not very good at. But Kansas State, with that balanced scoring attack, they don't have the go-to guy, So the question is, who wins a close game? We can expect this game to be tight. Is it going to be the team that comes up with the most loose ball, something Kansas State's been real good at doing all year, or a team that can make their free throws? Look at this graphic. Wake Forest, number 12 in the country. K-State, number 220. Sometimes those free throw shooting disparities make an enormous difference in games where the point spread is in the pick'em range.
Yes. Up next, the deep dive. We'll get to the NIT, new rules, and teams that are on spring break, plus the play of the day on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping it up, back on SportsBIT, Pauly and Teddy. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard, at Teddy_covers. The deep dive, the NIT. It's a lot like bowl games. Who's motivated? Who wants to be there? More on that in a second. But first, we have some new rules as they're tricking it up, trying to make it interesting. Number one, the game is split into 4 10-minute segments, but no stoppage of clock like the quarters. It just resets.
Yeah, but it's already interesting. We've got Syracuse against Greensboro, man. That's going to be fun. I mean, it's just a fun situation, especially with the blizzard in Syracuse. And I suppose they're not calling them quarters; they're just 10-minute segments. But the clock doesn't stop. Odd. It's a gimmick. I guess it's trying to make people interested.
After 4 fouls in any of the 10-minute segments, teams go into the bonus. But there's no 1-and-1. It's all 2 shots.
Yeah, and this is a big difference. We can expect a bunch of teams in the bonus. And you have a chance to go, obviously, in the bonus now twice and a half instead of once and a half. But when you're trying to adjust for totals, this is the one rule, one of the rule changes that certainly has bettors thinking overs, but the markets are thinking overs as well, as they always do with the lesser tournaments. NIT overs used to be a gold mine. We'll talk about that in just a minute.
Now, what are they doing with the shot clock?
Well, the shot clock only gets reset to 20 seconds, not 30, when a play causes a team to inbound the ball on the offensive end of the court. Which basically it's going to force teams to get in their offensive sets a little bit quicker. And again, it's a 10-second difference on a handful of possessions. We're not talking about an enormous difference maker from a total standpoint, but it's something that the books have to adjust for, and they have to adjust for it in a way where they don't have a huge database to go look at and say, oh, this is how much we need to adjust for this. Therefore, the markets, there's a guessing game going on here. How much does all of this matter? And that's what makes the NIT, particularly for totals, very, very interesting right now, with the betting markets taking some strong opinions on some of these games early on.
And then you have to get to motivation. Who's excited to be there? I can't imagine Syracuse is. They felt they should have been in. Then it's hilarious. They play Greensboro. Remember what happened to Monmouth last year? Destroyed in their first game. And now you got to throw in spring break. First round, home teams on spring break in schedule order. So reduce home court by a point or so. Syracuse, Monmouth, Colorado State, Bama, Utah, Central Florida, Iowa, Houston, TCU, and Illinois State. You don't want to bet on a team that usually has a strong home court advantage if there's going to be more empty seats than fans. Another problem, too. The players want to be out there with the students having a good time as well. The last thing they want is to be practicing, and they're also coming off a loss.
Well, exactly. Every single team in the NIT got there because they lost their last game. There are no exceptions to that rule. Every team's there off a loss. Now, some of these squads, you're going to say, hey, we're interested. We want to make a run. We want a trip to Madison Square Garden. They can use it as motivation. Other squads, as you mentioned, man, think about it. All your friends just went on spring break, and you're sitting at home and you got a 7 a.m. practice, and you got the coach yelling at you, and your season's already a disappointment, and the crowd at the game isn't going to be like the crowds that you had during the regular season because all the students are gone. These tend to be spots where you want to be a little bit hesitant about laying some points. And you listed all the teams, every one of them, where the students aren't there this week. So be aware, those squads in particular, the home court edge, you have to knock it down a notch or two. And the markets don't always do that.
You have an idea, a guess as who's going to be motivated, excited, and who doesn't want to be there? It's hard. I know it's hard.
And one of the biggest issues with the NIT is that people try to play a guessing game with motivation. All right. I'm always looking for quotes. I'm not saying, well, they should be disappointed. I want to see a quote from a team, a player, somebody around the program saying the guys were really bummed out. They're not really interested in this. Until I see that, until I get that info, you have to assume that teams are going to play to their capabilities. I want to go back to the total for one more minute because it really, when we talk about with the bonus and the extra free throws and they're no 1-and-1, so they're going to get 2 free throw shots after that 4th foul in each of those 10-minute segments. Last year the markets adjusted pretty heavily to the rule changes, and you know what happens? All the secondary tourneys trended under because the numbers were inflated higher than they should be. We could see more of the same this year. The markets have made adjustments, and even if the markets make adjustment 2, 3, 4 points, obviously higher than it should be, aggregately, it will have a big impact on the bottom line of the NIT action over the course of the next couple of days.
All right, tomorrow, USC Providence in the Midwest and South regions. We'll get to those, and we'll also do a couple of the Thursday games as well. Looking forward to that. Money time, play of the day. You mentioned Arizona. Where are we doing? Let's get back to Arizona here. What are you going with?
Absolutely. Arizona, NBA talent. Arizona, defensive acumen. Arizona, they play defense. All right, just said they rebound. Arizona is very live to win the West. Shopped around, the best number I saw here in Vegas, plus 200 at the LV Superbook. Let's take Arizona to win the West, plus 200. That's our play of the day.
Knockout information on the NIT. You don't want to miss any of the shows this week. We'll finish up these regions and we'll go hardcore this week, next 2 weeks, with the madness on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com. Right back here tomorrow.